Strength. We admire it, we seek it, and yet few truly understand what it means to be strong. Is it about muscles and armies, or is it something deeper? Something rooted in the ability to bend human nature to one's will. Machiavelli, the Renaissance thinker, so often misunderstood as a prophet of manipulation and cruelty, had his own vision of strength. And if we listen carefully, buried in his sharp words are golden rules that reveal how one might survive, thrive, and dominate in a world filled with uncertainty. So, what does Machiavelli really teach us about being strong? And can his lessons, forged in the intrigues of Renaissance Florence, still guide us in today's chaotic world? Let's explore 7 golden rules of strength, according to the man who saw power not as an illusion, but as the very currency of human existence. Before moving on to the video, please don't forget to like it and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Enjoy. Rule 1. Appear strong, even when you are not. Machiavelli believed that perception often outweighs reality. To the outside world, strength must always be visible, even if, behind the curtain, weakness lingers in silence. He understood that people rarely look deep. They respond to appearances, to gestures, to the surface of things, and so he warned, the illusion of power can be just as effective as power itself. Ask yourself, in your own life, how much of your influence depends on how people see you rather than who you truly are. Think about the workplace, your social circle, or even your family. Do people follow you because of your inner essence, or because you project certainty, confidence, and control? Human beings are drawn to symbols of authority, steady voices, calm eyes, decisive actions. Machiavelli knew that most people will never investigate whether that authority is genuine. They will simply obey. A leader, he argued, cannot afford to appear indecisive, for indecision breeds contempt. And contempt, once it takes root, is more dangerous than open opposition. People can forgive mistakes, but they rarely forgive weakness. They can respect a wrong decision more than no decision at all. In this sense, Machiavelli reminds us that hesitation is often more destructive than error. Look around in modern politics. Do we truly evaluate leaders by their actual competence? Or do we judge them by posture, tone, and image? A confident speech, a sharp suit, a firm handshake, these are often enough to sway millions. And in the corporate world, the principle is the same. How many promotions are earned not by silent diligence, but by visible self? In both spheres, appearances create authority, whether or not the reality supports it. To Machiavelli, the answer was simple. Always, appearances do not merely shape reality. In many cases, they become reality. If people believe you are strong, they will act as though you are strong. And in that collective belief, your strength takes form. Weakness exposed is weakness multiplied. But weakness concealed, weakness covered in the mask of power, can still command obedience. So here lies the paradox. The strong do not always rise to the top, but those who appear strong almost always do. Power, then, is not only a matter of possession, it is a matter of performance. Rule 2. Control fear before you inspire love. The most famous of Machiavelli's maxims still echoes across centuries. It is better to be feared than loved. If you cannot be both, and it resonates because it touches a raw nerve in human psychology, love is fragile, unstable, and prone to change. Fear, however, is rooted in something primal, our survival instinct. When people fear, they obey. When they only love, they may drift. Why is this so? Love is tied to affection, to feelings, to moods that rise and fall like tides. A friend who loves you today may envy you tomorrow. A follower who admires you in times of prosperity may abandon you in times of hardship. But fear does not sway, so is Ali. Fear is constant because it is linked to the most fundamental instinct, to avoid pain and danger. This is why fear commands respect more reliably than affection ever could. And yet, Machiavelli was not advocating senseless cruelty. He did not suggest leaders should terrorize for amusement or bloodlust. No, his teaching was more precise, more strategic. He advised rulers to cultivate a controlled fear, a fear that never drifts into hatred. Fear should arise not from random brutality, but from the perception of strength and consequences. To be cruel without cause invites rebellion. To be feared through discipline, consistency, and justice that keeps subjects loyal. Ask yourself this: would you rather be remembered as someone people admired, or as someone they dared not cross? The question sounds unsettling, but history offers its answer. Many rulers beloved by their people were quickly overthrown, betrayed, or forgotten. Admiration is beautiful, but it rarely saves a throne. On the other hand, those who are feared, though not always loved, often secured longer reigns, stronger control, and lasting power. Consider the modern world again. In business, which leaders are more effective? The ones who are adored by their teams but easily ignored, or the ones who command authority, who draw a line that cannot be crossed? Even in personal relationships, we can see this dynamic. People respect boundaries enforced with firmness more than affection offered without limits. Fear, in this sense, does not mean terror. It means respect grounded in strength. And so, the Machiavellian principle lives on: admiration alone may win you friends, but fear properly managed secures loyalty. Love may inspire poetry, but fear ensures survival. And in the brutal calculations of power, survival is everything. Rule 3. Master the art of deception. Strength, Machiavelli argued, is not only in the sword, but in the mind. Power is not simply about brute force, about the clash of armies or the raising of voices. It is about the ability to shape perceptions, to guide thoughts, and to bend reality without ever showing your hand. To deceive, to conceal, to mislead. When necessary, these are not acts of weakness, but instruments of strategy, finely sharpened like a hidden blade. But is deception weakness, or is it a higher form of strength, one that preserves without the need for open battle? Think about it. The one who fights openly risks everything, while the one who deceives controls the battlefield before the battle even begins. In politics, in business, in relationships, those who understand the art of deception can win victories without ever drawing blood. They plant illusions, craft appearances, and let their opponents walk willingly into the trap. Consider the lion and the fox. Machiavelli urged rulers to be both: the lion to frighten wolves, the fox to avoid traps. If you are only a lion, you may crush enemies with force, but you will be blind to subtle dangers. If you are only a fox, you may escape danger, but never inspire true fear. Power demands both: the roar that freezes hearts, and the silence that slips through shadows unseen. And in your own life, when have you needed the brute force of the lion, and when the cunning of the fox? Perhaps you confronted someone who tried to take advantage of you, and you stood tall, unyielding, refusing to bend. That was the lion within you. But perhaps there were moments when silence was wiser than words, when pretending not to notice was smarter than direct conflict. That was the fox guiding your steps. Life is not always about one path. Survival belongs to those who know when to strike and when to disappear. Remember this: people do not see reality as it is, they see what you allow them to see. The mask you wear, the words you choose, the secrets you keep, these shape the story others believe about you. To master deception is not to live dishonestly, but to recognize that truth itself is often powerless without the right illusion. Rule 4. Be ruthless with necessity. Machiavelli understood that strength sometimes demands cruelty, but only when necessity dictates it. Mercy, he warned, is admirable, but dangerous when it breeds chaos. Too much softness can invite betrayal. Too much hesitation can lead to downfall. A leader, a ruler, even an ordinary person facing hard choices must learn the difference between cruelty born of malice and cruelty born of necessity. If a difficult decision is needed to secure order, delaying or avoiding it only multiplies the harm. The wound ignored becomes infection. The enemy spared today becomes the enemy who destroys you tomorrow. The hard truth is that weakness disguised as kindness often ends in greater suffering. Sometimes the act that feels merciful in the moment becomes the very cause of destruction later. Think of it this way: is the surgeon cruel for cutting the patient open, or is it cruelty in service of healing? The knife is sharp, the pain is real, but the purpose is higher. Without it, the disease spreads, the patient dies. In the same way, a leader who punishes swiftly or who makes a painful choice early may seem harsh, but he prevents chaos from consuming all. Strength is not about kindness or harshness alone. It is about knowing when necessity demands one over the other, to act without hesitation when the moment calls for it, and to restrain cruelty when it is nothing but self-indulgence That is the true mark of power. Mercy without wisdom is weakness. Cruelty without necessity is tyranny. But the ability to choose decisively, even when it breaks your heart, that is leadership. Ask yourself, do you hesitate where Machiavelli would act? How many times in your life have you delayed a decision, hoping it would resolve itself, only to see the problem grow worse? How often have you allowed others to take advantage of your patience, mistaking it for weakness? And how different might the outcome have been if you had acted with resolve the moment necessity demanded it? To be ruthless with necessity is not to abandon your humanity. It is to understand that real strength is not measured in how much you feel, but in how much you are willing to bear for the greater good. Sometimes, the most compassionate act is the one that looks most cruel in the moment. Sometimes, the hardest decision is the right one, and the one who has the courage to make it, even at great personal cost, is the one who truly holds power. Rule 5. Adapt or be destroyed. A prince who relies entirely on fortune is lost. Machiavelli warned. Strength lies not in rigid control, but in adaptability. The world shifts. Fortune is fickle. Only those who bend can withstand storms. Imagine standing in a raging wind. The tree that resists snaps. The reed that bends survives. But what does this mean in our daily lives? It means that power does not belong to the strongest, but to the most flexible. Think of an empire, a business, or even a relationship. Those who cling stubbornly to one way of doing things, one model, one belief, eventually crumble when the world changes around them. The person who adapts, however, finds new paths, new strengths, new opportunities in chaos. Machiavelli saw fortune as a wild river, flooding its banks, destroying cities, but he also knew that rivers can be channeled, redirected, and used. Adaptability is not passive, it is strategic. To adapt is not to surrender, but to survive long enough to win. The wise ruler, like the wise individual, does not fight change, he bends with it, rides its momentum, and uses it to his advantage. Ask yourself, where are you resisting change in your own life? Perhaps you're holding on to an old career, a failing relationship, a past version of yourself. Perhaps you tell yourself that things must stay as they are because change feels threatening. But Machiavelli would say, rigidity is death. Permanence is an illusion. Everything is in flux, and only the adaptable endure. Think of the lion and the fox. The lion may be powerful, but when the environment shifts, when traps are set, the fox, with its cunning, thrives. Adaptability is the fox's greatest gift. The ability to change shape, to find escape routes, to live another day. A ruler or a person must learn to embody both. The lion's strength without the fox's adaptability is wasted power. So, I ask you again, what storms are you facing right now? Financial struggles, shifting friendships, a world that feels uncertain. Will you break like the tree, rigid in your pride, or will you bend like the reed, humble enough to adapt, wise enough to endure? The answer will determine not just your survival, but your destiny. Rule 6. Build loyalty through. Machiavelli knew people were not angels. They act not for morality, not for ideals, but for themselves, for gain, for survival, for self. The strong leader, then, is not the one who demands blind loyalty, but the one who aligns his goals with the goals of his people. Want loyalty. Do not appeal to virtue alone, for virtue is weak when hunger speaks louder. Instead, build systems where loyalty is rewarded, where betrayal is punished, not by morality but by consequence. Look at history. Rulers who believed their subjects would remain loyal out of love or principle often faced rebellion. But those who made loyalty profitable, those who ensured that people lost more by betraying than by staying true, created stability that lasted generations. In politics, in business, even in friendships, the same rule applies. People ask, consciously or not, what is in it for me? Think about your own life. Why do friends stay? Why do colleagues support you? Is it only love, or is it also that you bring them value, comfort, protection, opportunity? Machiavelli would say, true loyalty is not begged for, it is engineered. You must create a world where the cost of disloyalty is too high, and the reward of loyalty too sweet to abandon. Consider the leader who demands blind devotion. His followers may smile in his presence, but in private, they plot. Now consider the leader who shares success, who makes others stronger by standing with him. That leader does not need to beg for loyalty as people defend him because their fate is tied to his. This is not sentimentality, it is strategy. Machiavelli strips away illusions. People are not saints, but they can be predictable. They follow where their self-interest leads. If you want power, understand this truth. Do not waste energy on speeches about virtue, about purity, about eternal devotion. Instead, build alliances of interest. Forge bonds that make disloyalty dangerous. Create systems where people prosper when you prosper. And ask yourself this: in your own circle, are you demanding loyalty or are you designing it? Do those around you stand by your side because they admire you or because it benefits them to do so? Which one do you think is more reliable? Admiration fades. Benefits endure. True strength, according to Machiavelli, is not in demanding loyalty, but in making betrayal unthinkable. It is not in inspiring endless love, but in making disloyalty cost too much. That is how kingdoms last. That is how leaders endure. And that is how you, too, can build bonds that survive the storms of fortune. Rule 7. Leave a legacy of strength. Machiavelli's final lesson is perhaps the most haunting of them all. Strength fades, baddies wither. Power slips from our hands, but reputation, once carved into the minds of men, can live for centuries. The question is not whether you will die, but how you will be remembered. When your name is spoken, will people think of hesitation, weakness, and mediocrity? Or will they recall the one who acted with clarity, who refused to bow to fear, who made decisions that shaped the course of lives far beyond their own? Machiavelli reminds us that survival alone is not enough. To merely live and breathe is animalistic, but to create a legacy is divine. Think of Alexander the Great. His empire dissolved long ago, but his name is still whispered as a symbol of relentless ambition. Think of Julius Caesar, assassinated by his peers, yet immortalized as the archetype of leadership and command. Even those who were feared more than loved Attila, Napoleon, Genghis Khan still walk among us in history's memory. Their flesh is gone, but their strength echoes across time. And what about you? Perhaps you are not a conqueror of nations, but in your own sphere of family, your community, your craft, you have the same choice. You can live quietly, unnoticed, and vanish like smoke. Or you can carve your mark so deeply into the world that even when your body is dust, your influence lingers like fire in the hearts of those who follow. Legacy is not only for kings and rulers, it is for anyone who dares to live with purpose, discipline, and courage. So the ultimate strength, as Machiavelli suggests, is not in outlasting your enemies, but in outlasting time itself. To write your story in deeds so bold that centuries cannot erase them. To live in such a way that even fate, with all its storms and cruelty, must bow to your memory. Conclusion. Strength to Machiavelli was never about brute force alone. A lion may roar, but the fox survives in silence. True strength is vision, the ability to see beyond the horizon while others are trapped in the fog of the present. It is perception, the art of shaping how others see you. Because in the theater of life, what people believe often matters more than what is real. It is adaptability, the willingness to bend without breaking, to shift strategies when fortune changes her face. Strength is also wisdom, the wisdom to use fear not as a weapon of cruelty, but as a tool of respect, to use cunning not for petty deceit, but for survival and victory, to cherish loyalty without becoming blind to betrayal. These 7 golden rules are not comfortable lessons. They do not flatter, they do not soothe, they cut, they challenge, they demand you look into the darkest corners of human nature, and that is why they endure, because they speak the language of reality, not of fantasy. So I leave you with this. In your own life, will you embrace Machiavelli's rules of strength? Will you choose clarity over comfort, resilience over naivety, legacy over obscurity? Or will you cling to ideals that sound noble but leave you defenseless in the storms of life? Machiavelli's world may seem distant, filled with princes, wars, and courts of intrigue. But look closer, and you will see it is also our world. Offices, politics, relationships, negotiations, even social media, everywhere the same laws of power apply. To ignore them is to walk blindfolded into battle. To master them is to carry a shield against the chaos of fate. Because in Machiavelli's world than in ours, true strength is not merely an option. It is the only true shield. It is the armor that allows you to face life without fear, the compass that guides you when fortune turns her wheel, and the legacy that ensures your name does not vanish when your body does. So, the choice is yours. Will you live as a shadow, or will you live as a force?